Japan by River Cruise is made possible thanks to those who donate to the show at japanbyrivercruise.com, and thanks to the generosity of our corporate sponsors. This is a message from sayonarasale.com.
Hey guys, it's us, Sayonara Sale. You might not remember the name, but you've almost certainly seen the posts in our Facebook groups. When foreigners leave Japan, they turn to us to help sell their mini fridges, their Minna no Nihongo course books, their Daiso kitchenware, and any other junk they've accumulated in their 10 months in Japan. For many gaijin, our posts are their preferred method of finding out that another gaijin they hate is leaving for good. Anyway, we just wanted to let you know that for some reason, the quality of our offerings has gone way up in the last few weeks. Sure, you can still find grainy pictures touting miscellaneous kitchen items, but also lots of everything must go postings for entire expat existences. This is the perfect chance to turn someone else's long-time coming disillusionment into your short-term profit. By the end of the day, you could own an eikaiwa business employing dozens of people, buy the deed to a 4-bedroom family house, or snatch up the title to a car that's finally got cup holders big enough for your gaijin-sized drinks. As Japan suffers its first self-inflicted brain drain, we are pleased to offer one last chance for the not gonna take it anymore foreign community to come together with the nowhere else to go foreign community and help stimulate the Japanese economy. Sayonarasale.com. Buy someone's whole life. It's worth way less than you think. Hello, Brian, and welcome back to Japan by River Cruise. I'm Bobby Judo.
And I'm Ollie Horn.
And joining us this week is Rochelle Kopp, author, intercultural business consultant, serial guest, and huge fan of the show. In her soon-to-be-released book, Japan by River Cruise, the podcast that solved all of Japan's problems, she credits us with being the inspiration for most of her accomplishments. Rochelle, thanks for being here, and you're welcome.
Well, great to be here. And thanks for solving everything.
Our pleasure. On this week's show, Prime Minister Abe announces that Japan will begin to allow visa-holding residents to re-enter the country, but is it too little too late? Rochelle tells us why foreign firms and talent are rethinking their long-term plans. And I should point out that by talent, she means professionally desirable foreigners and not foreign talento like me. We will continue to take the crumbs we're given and be grateful for them. Plus, Ollie's got your weekly River Cruise recommendation. Ollie?
Yes, this week's recommendation is the Tokyo Water Taxi. Passengers are reminded not to open the automatically opening boat doors by themselves, lest they feel really stupid after, and the captain will probably ask you for directions to your destination rather than use the on-boat GPS. Users expecting to pay by card are advised to allow for at least 5 minutes at the end of their journey while the boat staff fumble around with a reader they don't really know how to use.
And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Nihon Daiyaku River Cruise liner. You'll recall that last March, when faced with bookings of over 200 new passengers per day, Nihon Daiyaku was all like, hey, this is an unacceptable number of passengers for this boat. This is a dangerous situation for this boat. Let's stop running the boat for a little while before we sink the boat and everyone dies. And yet now, with more than 500 new passengers per day, they're acting like everything is fine, even though we are literally on the same fucking boat. More on that later, but first, Soap Talk. Ollie, how's your week going?
Good, very good. I'm currently enjoying wearing a mask right now. There's a lot of hostility still in the UK, even more so in America, to the concept of wearing a mask. People saying that it's a violation of their human rights, as if, having to wear nice shoes in a nightclub is also a violation of one's human rights. Makes no sense.
Yeah, but pretty much everybody agrees that it's okay for you to wear one.
Well, thank you very much. Well, the reason why I'm enjoying wearing a mask is I'm still in lockdown, and I found myself at the unique intersection of needing to save money while also having the time for a challenge. And so I bought a safety razor. Right, are you familiar with what a safety razor is, Bobby?
Supposed to be a razor that's harder to cut yourself with?
Well, in theory, yeah, a safety razor is like the old-fashioned razor where you put the blades in yourself and kind of lock it on. So I realized I was wasting money and doing a bad thing for the environment by buying those like plastic disposable razors, with like the detachable heads. I thought that was terrible. Mm-hmm. So I bought one of these. It's just like a metal thing and you put the blades on top. And obviously safety razor was a name that was given to it in comparison to something way, way, way more dangerous.
The even more old-fashioned razor, right? Like
Yeah,
straight razors.
Yeah, exactly. Like just using a knife and hoping for the best. And so I bought this safety razor, and it's all right. Like it's hard, and I've not done a very good job. Like the first week of using it, my face looked like those tissues that you get at the bottom of a steak packet. That was kind of what my chin looked like. And slowly it got better. But I had to wear a mask because my face was just an absolute disaster. But then I bought some blades. I thought, I'm committing to this. So I bought these blades online. And they're really cheap, and there's loads of manufacturers that do them. But I thought, I'll go for the Japanese ones because, Japan knows best. And remember, I'd gone on this mission because I wanted to do better for the environment and stop wasting plastic. The Japanese blades, which I bought, they're by Feather. They came in a plastic-sealed cardboard box, within which was 20 separate plastic-sealed plastic boxes. And then within each of these plastic boxes is the blades wrapped in paper. I'm fairly certain that there is more plastic being used per box of razor blades than when I was buying my original plastic razors. And I've got 100 of these now, so I'm committed to this for a year. I've got to haul this hunk of shit around with me. And
also, when you're done using the individual razor blades, you're still throwing out razor blades, are you not?
Yes. I'm disposing of them sensibly. I'm not just randomly discarding them like a nunchuck. But overall, I've kind of committed to this now, right? The worst thing I can do now is to now abandon. Now I've bought 100 of these individually plastic wrapped blades to now go, actually, this is not for me, and revert back. That would be like double bad for the environment. So certainly for the next year, expect my face to look, just expect me to wear a mask.
Rochelle, I'm sure you're aware of the change where retailers are no longer giving out plastic bags in Japan now?
Yes, that's correct.
What's your experience with that been like? Are they actually charging for plastic bags, or have you started bringing in your own eco bag?
I actually was bringing my own eco bags before, and I'm finding every place is charging for bags pretty consistently. But I actually really like this because before this happened, I would always say to people, I don't need a bag. Mm-hmm. And even though I was saying it in Japanese, it like kind of wouldn't compute. And people kept trying to give me bags. I'm like, no, look, I brought my own bag. And now I don't have that conversation anymore because now they're expecting to talk to the customer about whether you have a bag or not. So I'm so happy about it.
I think it's a great thing, but I have noticed that even before, when I used to say I don't need a bag, they would still use those thinner plastic bags, the kind that they put like your packets of meat when you buy your meat in. And I've noticed now that if I'm buying one thing or two things, they'll say, do you need a bag? And I'll say no. And then they'll take whatever I had and put it into one of those smaller plastic bags.
Which kind of defeats the purpose.
It completely defeats the purpose.
Right.
The hack which I gave my foreign friends who were tourists in Japan to kind of deal with this, because it's very difficult to go, fukuro wa daijoubu desu, or, benira fukuro wa iranai desu, to just start by saying, as you're given the items, shiru de onegai shimasu. Shiru de onegai shimasu, which is getting them to put the tape on.
Sticker on.
Oh, that's cool.
And actually, I learned that life hack from Bobby.
I take it one step further. I save money and the environment by, I stole one of those rolls of tape that say 7-Eleven, and I just put it on the items myself. Saves time, saves money, and the environment. Stick it on some daikon from the Oden little vending thing and just carry it right out of the store yourself.
Rochelle, since the last time you were on, there have been a lot of developments to the COVID situation, and we spoke last time about how Japan might have handled this crisis better than other countries. Are you anxious now for two reasons? One, that you're living in a country where the cases are going up, and two, your theory might be undermined by the fact that Japan might be on the same track as America.
Well, I certainly don't like the fact that cases are going up here in Japan. That's obviously not good.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's very good.
It means that I haven't heard anyone use the word Mindo in the last few weeks.
Right.
Mindo. What's Mindo?
Mindo is the word that Aso used.
Oh, yeah.
That just says it's like the cultural superiority of Japan, and they have these why, but it explains the good COVID performance. And I haven't heard them use anyone used the word Mindo or any of those Mindo-like arguments recently.
Somebody told me today that the numbers are going up, but they're going up in a way that is directly correlated with the expansion of testing, as opposed to in America where like testing has increased by 19% and infections have increased by like 47%. And I saw an article a while back that I had on my list to read and did not read about why the people who are saying that this trend upward might not be indicative of a second wave and some of their reasons behind it. Do you think that there is any merit to the argument that this is because of increased testing, or do you think we're seeing a full-on second wave?
I haven't looked at enough of the figures to say for sure. I did see something that Motoko Rich had on Twitter either yesterday or today, where she had the graph from the New York Times related to what you were talking about of here, tests have gone up, but the number of cases have gone up more than you can explain from the increased testing. And she said that there was that similar phenomenon in Japan. So she seemed to think that Japan's increased numbers couldn't be explained by the testing.
If you want, I'll send you that article that I didn't read, and you could read it for me later and let me know what it says.
Okay.
Bobby, did we get any mail this week?
We did. We've got one from the OB, the original Brian. He says, sorry I haven't messaged you guys recently. That's an unnecessary apology.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've been
playing into our hands.
I've been studying for a big hiragana test coming up soon. I knew he would be the target market for that. That's why we get the advertisers we get. By the way, I disagree with the Brian who messaged you last week about the music being too loud. The music is fine, but could you lower Ollie's volume a few clicks? Thanks.
Yeah? How about this? Go fuck yourself, Brian. Shall we take a look at the news?
Ollie, what should we talk about this week?
Well, just yesterday, Prime Minister Abe made a statement relating to the story which we've already covered on this show a couple of episodes ago with Magdalena Osumi, Japan Times journalist, about Japan's ban on foreign residents leaving the country and coming back in, and also those residents outside not being able to come back in.
Yeah, I actually tried to reach out to some other Japan Times staff members about this issue, but for some reason they're not answering their Japan Times emails right now.
But thankfully, we do have a Japan Times columnist, freelancer, saved by the cuts, who's going to explain what Abe said and what it means.
Yes, Rochelle, it looks like the complaints finally reached his ears and he was finally forced to kind of make a public response to this. What were the bones of this public response?
Okay, the bones are that people who left Japan before April 2nd are going to be able to allow to return. It's not clear exactly when that's going to happen, and it's going to be done in some sort of gradual or step-like fashion. However, there hasn't been any information yet on what's going to happen with people who, for example, are waiting to come to Japan to start school in the fall, like start classes, or people who are coming here to take a new job. There hasn't been details about that yet.
So he hasn't actually given any concrete information at all. It just seems like for months and months, people have been nagging away at politicians like a mom, and eventually all we've got is, yes, what is it? And that's about all we can be grateful for so far.
And it hasn't just been like kids complaining to their mothers. Some countries are taking a really strong stance on this as well. I saw the German embassy put out a statement in Japanese that said, we are not going to allow Japanese nationals into Germany until you allow German visa holders in Japan back into Japan. And it's really a shame to see Germany and Japan going at it because they used to be so tight.
Rochelle, do you have any idea of the numbers that are affected still?
Well, yes. So right now, evidently there's 88,000 people who left before April 3rd and they were stranded abroad. And so these are the people that Abe's decision, whatever it was and whatever it's implemented, those people will be able to return gradually at some point. There's also another 12,000 people who left Japan after April 3rd, and they're stuck abroad, but what Abe announced doesn't cover them, so we don't even know when those people can come back. And then there's an unknown number of people who are waiting to enter for the first time who are stuck also.
And in addition to those people, there's also people in Japan that are not sure when they'll be able to leave Japan and come back in again.
That's correct. And that applies to all non-Japanese residents in Japan.
And the effects are just tragic. There are just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in this situation. Earlier today, I spoke to Lily, whose tweet went viral. She explains her situation. She's been living in Japan for 4 years already. She works as a consultant and an influencer originally from France. And she spoke to me about her experiences since the death of her father. I'll just play that chat.
So my dad passed away, and around that time we were in the middle of state of emergency in Tokyo. France was also in the middle of lockdown. The situation at the time was very complicated. And when I made the request to be able to go back to France as soon as possible, they let me know it would be extremely difficult, and I just had like about 3 days to be able to attend the funeral, because my father was very sick for about 10 years, and his body condition was not great.
I'm sorry to hear
So
that.
they told me I had like 2 to 3 days to attend the funeral because they're gonna bury him very quickly. So I had to make the choice. So the French embassy, they advised me to not go back, which I didn't. And by the end, May state of emergency was over, and my job, because they noticed I was not doing so well. In June, they called the immigration again, asked the same question, tried to see if I could go back to Japan, go back to France, and after I go back to Japan, they say, no, sorry, it's like funerals are over, so it's not possible.
And so the reason they gave was because you'd missed the funeral, you weren't allowed to go back and spend time with your family and grieve.
Exactly. So it's just like practical for them, just like just for the funeral. But I don't think they do understand the sense of grieving. Just like little gesture, being able to put flowers on my own dad's food. Like going to the graveyard and so on. So something for me is like basic human rights, but something they don't understand.
Was there any sense from the immigration that they were sorry for your circumstances? Did it come with an apology note?
Immigration, no. The French embassy, whatsoever, they were extremely sorry, and they were shocked and baffled by the situation. They say it's not normal, and this is shocking, because this is also, it's like just for grieving. I'm not going back to France for like doing COVID party or that kind of thing.
Of course.
Knowing like Japanese people, Japanese people traveling for leisure in Sweden, in France, and going back to Tokyo. And me, I got denied for like not such like fun situation. Don't want to go back to France like for fun.
Yeah.
It's like for like very sad, reasons. But I got denied 3 times. So I just don't understand the logic of the Japanese government at the time.
This must be so upsetting for you. Were you planning on staying in Japan for the long term?
Long term, I'm not sure anymore, because every time I have a real issue and I make a request, they kind of like, I don't know, I don't think they really care. I just have many doubts now. I really love Japan. It's where, for me, it's my home. I see myself living here for about like 5 to 10 years, but I'm not sure anymore.
Yes, and there's somewhat of a hypocrisy that Japanese passport holders can go and have fun, whereas you can't do something as simple as give your mother a hug.
Exactly. I do want to give my mother a hug. And, it was very hard for me. Like, even I just can't imagine things, but just like the basic thing that my brothers and sisters, they just put like, like a little piece of paper, and they wrote a last message to my dad, and they put it in his like pocket. Like, he has a shirt, a little pocket, and they all put like a little sweet message. And I was the only one not being able to do so. So, yeah, it's kind of, heartbreaking.
This is one of those things where you want to say, like, I can't imagine what this person is going through. But I think a lot of us are in a position where we can imagine exactly what the person is going through. I mean, I was home in the States in February, and a lot of times I'll think, is that the last time that I'll ever be able to see some of the people in my family? Especially with how bad COVID is in Florida, especially with the idea that, America's got different strains of COVID than we have in Japan. And so there's no way to tell when we'll be allowed to travel freely between these countries again. And with a system in place that is discriminatory against foreigners leaving and coming back, I think this is a situation that we could all very easily imagine ourselves in.
It doesn't seem like there's any acknowledgement that there have been real life consequences to this political decision.
Right. There was nothing that Abe said that acknowledged the pain that people are going through and that this is an issue, right? There was completely lacking any empathy.
Do you think there's any element of this that could be attributed to a Japanese cultural tendency to sacrifice for work or sacrifice for a community culture? Like when my father passed away a while ago, I remember kind of worrying whether or not Japanese people would understand that I was taking time off to go back home because it would mean missing so much work. And I think all the people that I know that I have personal relationships with did understand it. But I also kind of wonder, like, you sacrifice your personal life for a larger good in Japanese culture a lot of times. And so maybe there's a cultural element to the idea that, well, you've chosen a professional life here, your business is here. You make those kinds of sacrifices. You don't get to go back to see your family if you want to.
I mean, yeah, that could be at some level thinking in the immigration agency, etc. Although my theory is more the immigration agency didn't even think that far, that they just didn't consider this group of people to be particularly important.
Yeah.
I recall a tweet by Magdalena Osumi who says that she can imagine the kind of people who are making these decisions couldn't possibly imagine having a life abroad. Their experience of going abroad would be on a temporary basis, maybe on a group holiday, and coming back into Japan. And it's just such a wild thing for them to imagine that someone could completely uproot and have a whole new existence in a different country, that maybe they just didn't think that far.
Yeah, it's quite possible.
Especially since you have that phenomenon where, a foreigner who lived here for 20 years could have been caught outside and not be allowed back in now. But a Japanese person who lived overseas for 20, 30, 40 years, as long as they've got a Japanese passport, could come back in. I've seen a lot of pushback online as well to artists coming in for concerts and events, like entertainment, for entertainment purposes, people coming in from overseas. Like Supersonic or
there's a
Skrillex, right? Skrillex is coming.
Right. And Black Eyed Peas and Wu-Tang Clan.
Well, I
tweeted at them and asked them, are you guys really planning to come? And they did not answer me.
Can we stop giving the game away? Obviously, we're going to be using the fact they're coming into the country to use these commercial electronic music instrument crates to hide foreigners in. Let's not give the game away. That's obviously what this is all about. It's bringing 3 or 4 foreigners back in. Rochelle, in researching your piece, you spoke to people who have varying degrees of attachment to the country. And do you have any sense that there is a genuine potential for a brain drain here, that people who have set up businesses, invested money, are thinking there are other better options out there?
Yes, I talked to a number of people who said exactly that. And far more than I was able to quote in the article. But it's a lot of people are very unhappy about this. And people told me about, specifically that they're rethinking their plans, rethinking their investments. There was one person who I talked to, I didn't have a chance to quote, who is an entrepreneur who lives here, who said that they and their partner were thinking of buying property here. And said, we went from one day looking at properties on Sumo, the real estate site, to looking at other countries' citizenship and visa requirements.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really interesting when I was doing the interviews that there was one phrase that multiple people used, completely independent of each other. And that was, it feels like a slap in the face. And that's a pretty strong statement, and it's a pretty strong statement for multiple people to make independently of each other.
So when they talk about a slap in the face, that seems to suggest that people were expecting Japan to do better.
Yes. And these are people who have made significant investments and maybe even taken the trouble to get a permanent residency.
Yeah.
And feeling like that's not appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, when you pay your taxes, you pay into Social Security, and then you don't reap any of the benefits of it. You're treated like you are a transient population, or you're treated the same as the people that are coming in as tourists. Yeah, full on slap in the face.
Yeah, basically.
Although it seems like foreigners slapping each other in the face would make a great concept for a Japanese TV show.
I think that already is a Japanese TV show, isn't it?
You can imagine it now, right? Like a United Nations style lineup of people from all their different countries, people in their traditional costumes, and just watch them fight. Of course, this would have to be filmed outside of Japan. There's no way we're going to let them into a Japanese TV studio.
What I worry about with this is if there's this trend for people who can choose to go to another country, to not choose Japan, to choose a country that's going to be more reliable and treat them with more equal rights, you're going to see a widening of the discrepancy between foreigners who are harder to exploit and foreigners who are easier to exploit in Japan. And the Japanese economy needs foreign labor. It needs foreigners in construction. It needs foreigners in agriculture. It needs foreigners in elderly care, right? And in hospitals as well. And they're bringing over foreigners from other Asian countries under exploitative conditions. And so when all of the foreigners who have the ability to pick up and go somewhere else pick up and go, maybe Japan is going to rely more heavily for its economy on the foreigners who have no better options. And it's going to perpetuate these patterns of being able to exploit foreigners and Japan being okay with being able to exploit foreigners.
Quite possibly, yes. Which is not a very attractive prospect, is it?
And this could be a golden opportunity for Japan to attract talent, right? When you look at, for example, the political instability in Hong Kong in the wake of the new security laws, there's an opportunity for Japan to become the foremost financial hub in the region. But instead, on any end of the spectrum, whether you're a labourer who's being paid, less than 1,000 yen an hour to live in a dorm and statistically be more likely to be injured at work than your Japanese counterparts, or at the other end of the spectrum, someone who's on a $500,000 expat package, Japan doesn't seem like a very attractive proposition right now.
Mm.
And, it's ironic, given all the time, money, and effort that Japan has spent trying to attract foreign investment, trying to attract highly skilled foreign labor, trying to attract the non-skilled foreign labor, and also trying to attract non-Japanese students. Those have been 4 major efforts by the Japanese government in recent years. And this has just blown a hole in all of that. It's very unwise from a PR perspective.
Who could imagine the Japanese government enacting policies that would end up shooting themselves in the foot? I'm predicting how this is going to play out. I'm imagining Abe saying, we're lifting the ban, you guys can come back, everybody buys their plane tickets, and then 2 weeks later he says, yeah, you're going to have to cancel those, but the country will cover the cancellation cost. It's a go-to travel reference. We'll put that in the show notes just so people can understand.
Hey, thanks very much for listening to this episode 45 of Japan by River Cruise. Thanks as ever to those who support the show by donating $5 a month to get access to the show just slightly earlier than everyone else, and also access to the extra bits. You'll find the extra bits this week in your private feed.
And thank you very much to our guest this week, Rochelle Kopp. It's always a pleasure to have you. I don't know if you know this, but there are only 2 people in the entire world who have been on this podcast more than you.
Oh, wow. I wonder who they are.
You're in good company. As always, you can find Rochelle's stuff on Twitter at Japan Intercult, or you can find her on her website. It's linked in the show notes. Rochelle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Bye, Brian. We'll see you next week.